All right, so welcome everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. I'm Colonel Nicole Lucas. I'm the Garrison commander here on JBLM. I have with me my deputy commander, Colonel Percival. Thanks, of course, to the leadership that's here tonight. Really appreciate you coming. And to our family members and families here on JBLM, thanks for coming out tonight. Also, I guess I would be remiss if I also didn't thank a lot of the team that's here. There's a lot of the subject matter expertise that deals with water here tonight as well. So thanks to all of you for coming. I'm really glad to be able to spend a few minutes with you here tonight. We're gonna do a couple of things, but first I just wanna remind everybody that I remain committed to making sure that we are delivering safe drinking water to the workplaces, to homes here on JBLM. And you know, that kind of fits into all categories of things, whether that's housing, it's being able to make sure that our families and our service members are you know, given kind of the most safe environment and resources that we can provide. And that remains my commitment to you. The other reason we wanted to come tonight is this town hall is actually a follow-up to some earlier town halls that we did in June. So if you go to the next slide for me, Steve, please. So here's what we'll do tonight. We're just gonna talk about where we are, but if you go one more, so we're gonna just kind of review some of the things that we discussed when I was here in June, and most of our feedback regarding this subject came from the town hall that I did here on McChord. And we really have, we really appreciated the interaction that evening and the feedback from our residents and from our airmen and from our soldiers that live here on this part of the base. And so we're going to review kind of some of the things that we talked about that night. I also am going to show you tonight that we've been pretty busy based on what we discussed here. And so we want to show you some feedback from the work that we've done. And what I want to say before we get started there is thank you to all of you that helped us with that, because there was an interactive portion of what we needed to do following the June town halls. So for the families and the service members that helped us with data gathering and feedback, we really appreciate that. And we're going to show you some of that we received. And then you'll see we'll talk about our water survey. We're going to talk about the way ahead, so you have a good understanding that just because we've done a lot of work, it doesn't mean that we're done. And then lastly, we'll give you a chance to ask some questions, have a little bit of interaction since we're out here tonight. So I am not the expert, and I've learned not to try on this subject, so I'm going to bring up Mr. Perino.
Thank you, ma'am. What we did with the June town hall meeting right afterwards, we got the tape of it from VI, and all the subject matter experts got together over 2 evenings for about 4.5 hours. We went through every single portion of the town hall meeting. We checked our notes. We cross-referenced with each other's notes and what was said, and we were able to capture what we think were the important parts or points that we needed to fix. So I'm going to go over through 4 of them very quickly. The first one was just aesthetics. How do we get rid of the brown water? I know there was a lot of disappointment from everybody saying it's going to be 7 years before the brown water is fixed. Privatization, if we think it's coming or not, they have to fix, if it's privatized next summer, they have to fix it within the first year of the contract. So instead of the 7 years that we originally thought, we're probably talking 2.5 to 3 years, the brown water will have to be fixed by the privatized owner of the water system if it's privatized. What's the probability? Well, today, the electrical system infrastructure on JBLM was privatized. So one system was, not guaranteeing it will be on water, wastewater, but it shows that it is happening across DOD, especially the Army now. Excuse me. So with those notes, so aesthetics, improve flushing program. We went out and got a piece of equipment that makes it a lot easier or more efficient for us to go do flushing. So if someone calls up with a brown water issue, we can go out there and we'll take samples inside the house, outside the house, we'll flush, and we'll be able to do that. We've also evaluated some of the survey that we had from information from the survey, and we'll get to that in a minute. We're going to probably increase our flushing frequency in certain areas of the housing areas. So the one thing I guess I misunderstood all these years about flushing, when we have flushing, you're going to get more occurrences of brown water after we flush. That's not really true. You'll have more occurrences of brown water while we are flushing. So and again, 15 through 19 October, we're going to flush the housing area in McChord. Doing those days, that week, if you're turning your water on, you might have brown water because we're moving all that stuff to get it out. When we turn it off, the next, the 20th, 21st, you should not have any more brown water issues. So I might have miscommunicated that in June. So it's only going to happen when we're flushing. Adjusted chlorine, there was issues of chlorine, and we've noticed it ourselves when we visited empty homes, it just smelled like chlorine. We had set it at 0.7 parts per million. The law requires us to keep at the furthest point away at 0.5 parts per million. Okay, I'll get it right in a minute. So what we did, we were well above the 5 with the 0.9. We were staying around just below 0.7. So what we did is we lowered it where we injected into the system to 0.7. We are still maintaining the 0.5 that's required by law, and we have not received any phone calls for chlorine. It doesn't mean it's not out there. It's just that it has stopped all calls about chlorine smells. So if you still have it, please call us. We have not received any since June, since we did that. Communications. Part of this is communications that Colonel Lucas says we want to reach out, we want to communicate as much as we can. We brought this up last time. PW is your point of contact for brown water and any water issues, period. It's not housing, it's not Lincoln, it is PW, service order desk. I think we're getting them now. Housing is not calling us, Lincoln is not calling us saying that they have phone calls. So we believe we fixed that, everybody understands, call PW. Protocol, if you have brown water, if you have a water problem, please call it in. Again, the number is 253-967-3131, option 2. We take that as a priority 1. It's immediately sent to the water team. They will call you up and ask permission to come to your house. If you give them permission to come to your house, they'll ask to come in so they can evaluate, is it yellow, brown, what color of brown, and then they will take a chlorine test to ensure that your water is at the proper, at least 0.5 of chlorine. So we want to make sure it's safe. So that's the first thing we do. We also do the same thing outside the house at the closest fire hydrant. And then after both tests, we flush both the fire hydrant and your house. Because our only priority is to make sure you have clean drinking water. And we want to verify that. After we flush it, we document it, we make sure that we watch, your address. If you call again, then it's a repeat. And that will influence how we do our flushing program again. Okay, we've already talked about tracking. We've got a tracking database now. We've received 11 phone calls since the 13th of June, the last town hall meeting. So we are getting some, but I'm going to show you some data here in a minute from the survey that we have, and there's kind of a disconnect. So again, we're doing that. Also, we have what's required by law, a water council. I chair that. We meet once a quarter. Well, we've started since the 13th of June. We've had a subcommittee, which we call the Brown Water Working Group. We meet every other week. We go over every call that's been made, and there's not been many, and we try to evaluate the little bit of data that we have. So we are taking it extremely serious. We have Madigan involved. They come to the working group, so we may have 15 people there every other week to do this. So please, I'll say it again many times, please call. To ensure you know that we are following all the rules, regulations, EPAs, everything, safe drinking water, we sent out email to every housing resident on the 5th of July, the 2017 the water survey report. That is required by law. It's always online. You should have that. And every July, we send out the past year. We meet every requirement. The water survey. I'm going to go over the water survey here in a minute. I just want to mention here that we did that, and we did some initial sampling. I want to go through that. Sampling. We reached out to Army Public Health Command. They have testing kits that we can use to go test drinking water. We bought 50 of those kits, and about a month and a half ago, we did 4 houses, 2 from the group of people that were here in June that they requested it. So we did that, and then we did 2 other homes that were vacant. So we did 4 homes, and we also did 5 distribution wells, and we did tests before the treatment and after the treatment. We paid for a rush, and it didn't happen, so we're expecting those results anytime soon. We asked for a 2-week turnaround, and it's been closer to 5 weeks now, and it hasn't been done. Last week, we did round 2. We did the distribution system this time. We did it in 10 different locations, as well as 2 different wells. This time it was both on the housing water system as well as McChord Field main water system. So we are doing a series of testing on water, and as soon as we get the data, we'll be able to evaluate that. Okay. This is just the map. This only shows 8. Tried to keep it somewhat generic. 8 homes that have responded. We've had 3 since this slide was made. It just shows that the treatment system is to your right side of the map, and that's where the calls are. So that tells us something that we need to do. So that data alone helps somewhat, but more of the data, the better. The survey itself, though, again, we've had 11 phone calls in 3 months, just 11. But if you look at this graph on the survey, see if I can do this, there. The 3, and the 15, always daily, weekly, that's telling me 21 people that live in McChord Field housing gets brown water, always, daily, or weekly. That's 21 people. But at the same time, over 3 months, we've only got 11 phone calls about brown water or chlorine. So that means if this data is true, then we're not getting the phone calls we need to start reacting and going to those locations. You should not be satisfied living with brown water always, daily or weekly, without reporting us and giving us a chance to make sure your water is clear. So that was the disconnect that was somewhat discerning. The other one is we had 65 surveys reported out of 912 homes. That's 7%. That's really low data, extremely low. You'd like to go to, off installation, you're probably talking 15% at worst. We were half that. So we're not getting the data that we need, either through the survey or through the phone calls calling in brown water or chlorine issues. The dorms, we tried to locate the airman that said daily, weekly, and we just couldn't figure out who it was. It was, anonymous, and it said a dorm, but, so we couldn't find those 2 individuals. In the bottom it's just non-housing, non-dorms. So building 100 or whatever it may be, we only got 5 data points. Again, it's kind of hard to do anything with that little bit of data. We may have to evaluate and try this again. But I know there's so many surveys out, everybody kind of gets surveyed out. Zoning, the data that we have, not only can we flush more often, but we can flush more often in certain areas. That's just an example of a flushing zone. And if we had enough data, we can say if that's where most of where the brown water is, we could flush that on a monthly basis versus quarterly basis. But again, we don't have the data we need. So we're going to continue, we think, to flush quarterly and not to increase, but it could increase. Okay, long term. Again, privatization of water, wastewater may occur this time next year. And then in the first year, if it's privatized, they're required to fix the brown water issue. So we're talking no later than 3 years, most likely, hopefully within 2.5 years, the brown water will be solved. I know it doesn't do you any bit of good for those that live in housing today, but we have a long-term permanent solution. Again, we talked about flushing. The other thing we did is someone brought up as we were leaving from the town hall last time, it says, well, the signs are too small when you're flushing. We really can't see it. You drive right by it. So we've kind of tripled the size. So next time you see it, it's going to be a 3-foot wide sign that says flushing this week or next week or whatever it is, or these dates. So hopefully people will recognize it and not just ignore it. Again, talked about the survey. And the bottom line there is still, we need feedback. Please, we got to know what we've got to fix. We truly care. We want to help you out, but you've got to let us know. Ma'am, that's all I have.
Thanks. Wow, it's loud. So that's where we're at. So we've talked about kind of where the long-term solution is, what we're going to do in the interim, and we'll continue to do. And a lot of that is dependent on communication from our residents, from our units. So this is where we are. What I want to do now is offer you an opportunity to ask questions. We can clarify what we've talked about here. If there was something you were expecting to hear about tonight that you didn't hear, please fire away. We got 2 microphones there because I think we're recording, just to be able to have it for replay if we need to. But so what questions do you have? Or is there anything we want to talk about? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just kind of grabbed that, sorry. Hey, so one of the things on the surveys that I saw, because we got them at the house, I was kind of excited to fill it out, but when I clicked on it, it went to a non-trustable website. Do not recommend clicking is kind of what it told me. So I wonder if you'd address that, because that probably turned a lot of people off that you might have got data from.
Thanks.
We heard that. That's what everybody did. That may be a reason why we need to do the survey again and let people know, even though it says that it is trustworthy, it's just the system that we had to use for this. This is what it came out. So hopefully that's the reason. So please take note of that, guys, and yeah, thank you.
Okay. Did anyone else have that? If you're a resident, do you remember? Okay. Or do you even remember, if you live in housing, do you remember getting a survey? Yes, good, that's good, good, all right. So, no? Okay. Any other questions? Sorry, Aaron, you could have just come up.
Hey, can you explain why it has to be, even at the shortest, it has to be 3 years? Why can't we come up with a solution in the next year, for example, to fix the brown water?
So what we've got, well, we're in a position where we're going to look at, actively looking, the Army is at privatizing our water. There is our plans to correct this via MILCON are there, but a MILCON solution would take longer to address, to fix the issue if we don't privatize water. So our actually faster course of action is through privatization, and we have that clarity now that if we do privatize next year, then we believe we'll be, another year to have the brown water addressed. If we were to address it, if privatization does not occur, and we have to fix it through Army channels, through military construction channels, that would take longer to do, and I think that's where our 5 to 7 year window originally came from. So this is the faster path. Unfortunately, anything that involves construction, it isn't quick, but the privatization has us on a path that's more in line with sort of what you'd see in the civilian sector to address a problem like this. What's that? Oh, you're going to hand it out. Okay. I thought you had a... Good. Any other concerns? I don't want to feel like you have to ask a question. Chief? No, I don't want you to make one up. Okay, well, of course, I will stay here for a few minutes if you want to talk to me one-on-one or if you have concerns that you want to see addressed. Again, it's really important to me that not just that we are providing, a safe work environment, living environment, and safe water delivered to your home, but also that we maintain your trust throughout for certainly my tenure here and really for the long term, what we provide in terms of the installation that we are being transparent with you. I mean, we know that the brown water that's here on JBLM it's not new, but it is important that we are, communicating with you about what it is, why it is, and what are the steps that we're taking. The message that we always want you to know is you should never it isn't acceptable for you to be drinking or bathing in brown water. So let us know when that is occurring in your home so that we can, one, come out and see it and address it, and two, put it into the bigger plan to make sure that we're tackling the problem with kind of all the facts.
Hey, thanks. And just to follow on with what Colonel Stainpine was talking about, so not to be dramatic either, but if there was something wrong with the water where people were actually getting sick and there was a problem where, there was a health concern immediate, there would be a mechanism to get this thing going quicker. So would there not be?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, I mean, why wouldn't we use that same mechanism right now for the brown water?
Do you want to talk?
First of all, never drink brown water. We're not asking you to do that. It's a secondary standard, meaning it's aesthetics only. It's natural occurring 2 chemicals of manganese and iron, and it oxidizes when you put chlorine in it, and the result is brown water. Again, don't bathe in it. We're not asking you to drink it, but it's not a health issue. That's why we can't speed it up. It's an aesthetic only, the secondary standard.
Since you asked the question, I'll use the example that we've talked about in the previous town hall, which is the chemical that's in the water in this area. It's the PFOA chemical. The efforts that we're doing here on JBLM are some of the best in the Army. As we detected those chemicals we took those wells offline immediately. There's a kind of fast process that's being worked right now to build carbon filters at those 5 wells on JBLM. We'll do that next spring. And then, so we removed any risk to our population by taking those wells offline immediately. We worked through the channels that we could to address it as quickly as possible. It's taken still not, more than a year, but we'll start that construction in the spring. You'll see that during your time here, and those wells will come back online once we're sure that they're properly, the filtration system is working. So you're absolutely right, and that's the challenge between, with the brown water, because it's a secondary issue, it's an aesthetic issue. Doesn't mean that you should be living with it, drinking it, but it's a different kind of problem. But we're addressing all of them. Yeah.
No, so I do have a serious question on regards to drinking water, for example. So AFES has a fill station at the Chapette here on McChord where you can fill water bottles, but it's always broken. Matter of fact, I went over just last night to fill up the water bottles for my family. It's broken probably 2/3 of the times I go to use it. And even yesterday as I was there, the AFES employee was joking that it is always broke. If there was a possibility to either get that repaired quicker or to possibly even get a second one somewhere on the installation, I think that would at least be a good half step while we wait for the permanent fix.
You asked the right person, so I will. Yeah, I didn't know that about, and we have a good relationship with AFES, so we'll get after that right away. Thanks for that feedback. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
And okay, I work at the PX, and most of the girls, they drink fountain water. I don't, because I know how bad it is. Because I went somewhere to test it. It's really bad. So, can we do something about that though?
So we test all of the water on the installation. So I mean, based on what you've just said right now, I'm sure we will go and double check our work, but I can tell you the water is safe to drink. The brown water issue, again, is, is what we're talking about tonight, but all of the water on the installation is tested at the tap. So the well distribution system and at the tap. So you can be confident that the water is safe to drink on JBLM. When you have a brown water issue, you have to let it run till it runs clear. And that's part of our flushing program that we talked about that helps address that, kind of in the system. And we do regular testing, and we've done some special testing with regard to, since we've had these discussions, to build that confidence that the water is safe to drink. And I'll let.
We're developing a plan. By the 15th of October, we're going to do a protocol decision tree on what houses that we're going to test, because we can't test 912 homes. So we're going to have a decision tree. First thing is, do you have brown water, or do you have chlorine smell? Those are items that will come to a decision, okay, we're going to test your house. By the middle of November, we're going to have a protocol for non-housing and non-dorm facilities, which includes the exchange. The exchange on McChord has a historical problem of brown water. We know that. So we will go, and that's the first criteria that you meet in a decision tree. There's some other ones. So by the 15th of November, we'll have that decision tree. One of those is also serving large populations. The exchange serves a large population. So that's two decision criteria on a decision tree that will say, we will test that facility. Not promising, but the likelihood of us going and testing the water ourselves, again, with NPW and not waiting until the every 3-year testing, it's probably most likely that we're going to test the water in the exchange on McChord.
Only McChord? Only McChord?
No, I mean, we're doing, no.
Fort Lewis?
Are you at Lewis or McChord?
Yes.
Oh, you're Lewis. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I assumed you were at McChord. That's why I said that. Oh. No, it's going to fit. The criteria is going to fit. The only difference with Lewis, it doesn't have a brown water problem, but it's a high populated area, a use facility. So most likely we will do that. But okay. I drink out of water fountains on JBLM.
But I think you bring up a good point, and it's for actually more people in this room actually work in buildings on JBLM than necessarily live in them. So this is the other takeaway. There's nothing that precludes you as someone who works in a building on JBLM from calling DPW. That number is the same, and we can. That was wrong. It's 3131. Oh yeah. So 967-3131. So if you call from the exchange and identify that, who you are and what your concern is, we'll take that documentation. So please remember that as as someone who works on the installation, we want your feedback as well. It's not just about inside of housing. So you bring up a great point, ma'am. All right. So what I will, okay. Oh, they're fixing the number. We're quick. So what we'll stand, I've got a bunch of the team here. I've got do I have our water savant, I think, is here. So I have a lot of the team here that would be glad to answer a one-on-one question if you have it. I do, we're not done here is what I want to leave you with, okay? We're very, very we take our job seriously. We're very, very committed to making sure not just that I know that the water is safe, but that you know, that our residents know. And so we will remain committed. And what we'll do is, as we continue our work efforts, we'll probably need to look at what is the best way to inform our residents, our workforce, our command team, so that we're continuing to keep you in the loop on progress that we're making as we continue to treat not just the issue of brown water, but more importantly, any concerns that we have as residents of JBLM as well. So I really appreciate you coming tonight. I love being able to interact with whenever I can. So I really, and I say this all the time, I can't be everywhere on JBLM, but we are everywhere. So I really appreciate the feedback, and I appreciate what your airmen and soldiers also give us in terms of feedback as well. Thank you.